According to a subpoena from the Select Subcommittee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government, the Biden administration colluded with tech companies such as the Google-owned YouTube to censor COVID-related content throughout 2021. The censorship scheme was led by then White House Director of Digital Strategy, Rob Flaherty, who later left that position. He now works on the president's re-election campaign. But with the 2024 presidential election now approaching, what role could big tech censorship have in these campaigns? Well, joining me now to discuss this is Tom Fitton. He, of course, is the president of Judicial Watch. Tom, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to see you.
Hey, good to be with you again, Jody. Thank you.
All right, well, there's a lot to uncover that I want to talk to you about, but before we get into that particular issue, today, of course, the Select Subcommittee on Weaponization held a hearing. Catch us up on what took place today.
Well, you had the Democrats. I mean, you had Ron Goldman, is his name Ron, Congressman Goldman from New York, talk about the Hunter laptop being potentially fake. So they're completely out to lunch purposely when it comes to the censorship they encourage in order to disrupt and interfere with the 2020 election. On top of that, we've had new revelations over the last week tying our military complex and national security complex more directly to efforts to censor and suppress information around the election. And then on top of that, as we're hearing again just recently, and Judicial Watch is finding this too, and our separate independent investigations, you have a massive push by the agencies and the White House specifically, to censor information or dissent on COVID and the vaccines. And whether it be YouTube, Twitter, you name it, you had really kind of a whole of government approach to censorship. And, it began, frankly, under the Trump administration through these deep state actors trying to mess with the elections by suppressing content about Joe Biden and questions about the administration of the election. It's metastasized under Biden, and Biden's kind of embraced the censorship ethic directly and personally. And we see this in document after document where top officials of these big tech companies, these social media companies, are in direct communication with the White House. Basically, you can tell in the emails that they're afraid. What can we do to get you off our back? And this is on top of kind of the broad big tech censorship regime that targeted you, that targeted me, that targeted Judicial Watch. And I mean by you, I mean you, Jody.
Yeah, you
were sitting congressman. They were targeting you. So, and of course, President Trump was targeted as well. And on top of everything else, you have this new Twitter subpoena, or the subpoena that's been recently disclosed, where the Biden Justice Department, through Jack Smith, is not only trying to get material about the Twitter account of President Trump, but the Twitter account of everyone who was following him, liking him, or mentioning him on Twitter, which potentially is tens of millions of people. So this is a massive effort not only to censor, but to intimidate and track Americans who oppose Trump.
So let me give you just a follow-up to that,
or who just had curiosity about what Trump was saying. So Nancy Pelosi maybe was caught up in this.
Yeah, who knows? When you say that this was a whole of government approach, that's chilling. I mean, as you said, I experienced it, you experienced it, so many experienced this eye of intimidation and potential threat coming from the federal government. But when you talk about whole of government, this is like coordination. It is strategic. It is planned out. How concerned, in your opinion, Tom, should Americans be about this weaponized federal government that seems to be increasingly becoming more and more evident?
I mean, there are kind of a few issues. You have the attack on our First Amendment freedoms, the efforts to suppress and censor. CIA involved, State Department involved, FBI involved, Department of Homeland Security involved, HHS involved, the White House involved. And then on top of that, you have prosecutions of those who were disputing the elections in 2020, the abusive prosecutions of Trump in four different jurisdictions, quite literally, right? All by Democrat politicians or their appointees. And we've never really seen that before. I mean, we all know the Justice Department engages in political type prosecutions now and again. But here you have the Biden administration and the culture here in Washington, D.C., completely embracing the idea that it's okay for Biden to try to jail his political opponent based on charges that had never been brought before in the history of America and never been pursued anywhere in any jurisdiction before, like they're being pursued against by Trump. So it isn't like Trump did something. It's like he ran over a cat. Everyone knows you're not supposed to run over a cat. He did something that is typically protected by the First Amendment and the Constitution and his rights as president, and they're trying to jail him for it. And that's something that third world countries do. I mean, we're prosecuting dissent like a third world republic, a banana republic, and we're spending like a banana republic. You know, I just hope we get back to being a constitutional republic.
Absolutely. Oh, and listen, the work that you do there at Judicial Watch is so critical in this whole thing, and we're extremely grateful for that, Tom Fitton. Now, let me ask you this, because the next layer, if you will, to this onion, what we now learn is this federalized attempt to weaponize and go against political opponents and perhaps other people now shows up that it was a part of the whole COVID deal as well. And now the one who was overseeing that is now overseeing the president's reelection campaign, which could have political ramifications as it relates to the integrity of the upcoming election and another potential pandemic. What are your thoughts in that regard? Is this part of the plan for him shifting from the director of digital strategy in the White House to the reelection campaign?
We knew the political operation, the PR operation for the Biden campaign was advising the state of California on censorship matters related to citizens questioning the elections and how they were being run. We had evidence of that. So if they did what they did last time, you can be sure the Biden campaign, as their candidate, you know, the president of the United States is pushing for the censorship of Americans, and the left approves of it. Why wouldn't his campaign embrace it? Certainly, given the personnel is going to be who is doing it in one place is going to be in the other place, the campaign.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this, and final question for you. How concerned are you, in light of this whole big picture that we're discussing right now, how concerned are you overall about election integrity heading into 2024?
Well, I fear that Americans are have lost confidence in the election systems, right? And I think we need to restore confidence in the election systems, and we need to ensure that elections are going to be fairly run and appear to be fairly run. That means by encouraging people to vote on Election Day, counting the votes on Election Day, requiring voter ID, don't allow the mass collection of ballots. And I know Republicans are thinking, well, you know, these are the rules. We have to kind of do what we can under the new system. But in my view, you're setting up a system that invites fraud, makes it nearly impossible to detect, and it could be ugly in the end in terms of people not having confidence in the outcome one way or another.